Hello, Ciarán. It is wonderful to see you. Thank you for taking the time, as always, to catch up and say hello. It's been a little while since we've had a chance to do this. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's. I suddenly realized that it had been a while since we'd recorded a video interview. Although we see each other practically daily, and we have been
It's
on the
true.
road quite a bit, and we
Yes,
have we have we've done a lot of traveling. But yeah, it's great to give everybody an update on where we are, looking at the issues of today, the issues of tomorrow, and of course some of the recurring issues from the past. So yeah, it's great to see everybody, and particularly at this time, as we look forward to Easter, which is always a very important issue for a very important time for Irish Republicans.
that's right. We have a lot to go over and a lot of updates and news to share as well as to analyze. I want to kick it off by making sure everyone has seen our announcements about the next round of People's Assemblies. We will be gathering in Nashville, Tennessee, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and in Chicago, Illinois at the end of May with a special guest, Pat Cullen, MP, and Ciarán, you'll be there as well for these events, which will provide an opportunity for people to connect with other activists and get involved directly with the process of moving forward and towards a new and united Ireland. So if you follow us on the socials, you have seen those announcements, and we will continue to share information. Please sign up. It's a free event. It's available to register on Eventbrite. You have to register, but we want to see all of you. And we will be sharing news about that in future newsletters and our social media accounts. So we hope to see you there. We'll talk more about that in a bit. But I think it's going to be there's a lot to cover, and none of it's really easy. If we could, what we've paid attention to in the stages after the election back in November, late November 2024, has been somewhat challenging to follow how the government has been formed, how opposition has been formed. I think even for those of us who are in the deep end of being nerdy about how elections work and what opposition means and how governments are formed, it gets a little tough to follow. So could you give us a little bit of an insight into how was a government formed and why have things been a little less than straightforward since then?
Okay, yeah. Well, I'll try to, and it's always good to remember that there's a difference in the way government is structured between the US
Yes.
and Ireland, and to a certain extent Canada as well, because I know some of our Canadian friends listening to this. So we have a parliament and a government, and the government is elected from the parliament. So the parties that can form a majority get to form government. They set the laws. They have a majority in parliament to force through their program for government.
I can just
So
pause there because I think that's an important point. When people go to the voting booth and vote, they're voting to elect a parliament, and then that parliament is the body that creates the government. That's a sequence of events that we don't have. That's an
yeah,
important distinction. Yeah.
yeah. So a post-election, the election results found that Fianna Fáil were the largest party, Sinn Féin were the second largest, and Fine Gael were the third party. And then there was an assortment of smaller parties and what are called independents, people who are technically not affiliated to any political party, but a lot of them come from what we call the gene pool of Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael.
Yeah.
They're previous elected representatives of their parties. Uh, so the Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, who had been in the last government together with the Greens, were 2 seats short of an overall majority. So they needed to find a partner in government. And there was a round the houses negotiation with one common factor, and that was they sought to exclude Sinn Féin yet again. So you would think the first party and the second party would get together and start discussing how this could be done, and there
There's
would be a
logic to
majority
that
of
to
them.
that to that idea, certainly.
There is, but that is not where they're at. So they want to exclude Sinn Féin from government. So they cast around, and both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael settled on a group of independents who, it does sound a paradox that independents form groups, but
Yes.
that's that's what they have done. So that was they got their numbers together. They elected a speaker who was drawn from the independents, and they went to form a government. And the government was eventually formed. But what they by sleight of hand, the independents, some of whom joined the government as ministers, others stayed outside government. They awarded them the same rights as opposition parties. And opposition parties in that parliament are very important because they hold the government to account. So they are able to, they ask, have set questions, they have set speaking rights. But what Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael done is by pulled what we call a stroke in Ireland. I'm not quite
Mhm.
sure what the
Yeah.
It'll probably be a stroke in America too.
Yeah.
And that was to try to afford these people that they would be both supporting the government and also availing of opposition opportunities as well. So that caused
Try to pull a fast one, I think we'd say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they pulled a fast one and they forced that through, even though
Yeah.
they agreed that these issues should be in a parliament, need to be agreed between the opposition and the government. So we have a unified opposition approach, and the outworking of it is the election was in November, and the government has just went back into Easter recess. The committees haven't been formed, and they will only be formed when they return. So it'll probably be around 6 months after the election that we will have a proper functioning parliament, and it's all to do with this messing that had went on. And
Yeah.
there's major issues to be resolved, both domestically in terms of housing, healthcare, the rights of
Yeah.
workers,
Constituency
and
services, yeah, what a government does, yeah.
and also just internationally,
Yeah.
where I mean the international orders change. There's issues like tariffs and relationship between Ireland and the US, and the Ireland, US, and the EU all are in the mix. So there's a lot of work to be done there. But I suppose the outworking of this is that Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael yet again acted to exclude the second largest party. So Mary Lou McDonald is back as the leader of the opposition. Interestingly, the opposition are a lot more coordinated
Yeah.
and are working in common cause to hold this government to account, which is just an interesting change.
Development. And you could almost say that it would appear as though Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have prioritized stymieing any opposition movement over serving the people of Ireland. And that is probably a misappropriation of power and how governments are supposed to serve, right?
Oh, absolutely. It
Yep.
was to retain their position in government was what was driving them. There's nothing new or
Yep.
imaginative in terms of their program for government. They're not coming with any new ideas, and the old problems persist.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really frustrating to watch. It is hard to understand sometimes. So thank you very much for shining a light into some of those confusing and dark corners. I imagine there will still be many questions and continue to pay attention to our updates and news and analysis. But thanks for giving us a sense of why things seem so confusing. It sounds like it's because they're so confusing. It's not easy right now. Yeah.
And one of the good pieces when they do return is that Sinn Féin will have the largest number of committee chairs. So we'll be able to direct sort of the work of committees to hold the government to account in very specific areas as well. So
that is great to hear.
It'll be interesting, as I say. Our job is to make sure the government actually delivers for the people.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that overview and analysis of what's going on there. It's kind of the next topic I'd like to discuss is a little bit of time travel and as present now, sadly, as it has been for some time, but the issues of legacy and finding out truth about many of the events that happened. I know in the time since we last met, there was an excellent tour around the United States of a book called Lost Gales, which covers a great analysis of looking at the role the GAA and their members have played in this work, as well as some of the horrors that have happened to them over time. Part of that work included the murder of Sean Brown and a case that is being denied into getting to the bottom of that, to the truth of what happened there. Can you provide, is there any news or updates on what's going on in that area?
Yeah, on the Sean Brown case, and as well as the ongoing issues with the Pat Finucane case, and just the British government's general approach to legacy is to cover up and subvert and frustrate. The current British government, which is headed by Labour, promised that they would have a whole new position than the Tories had, the previous government, and that hasn't came to effect as yet. They made some changes, but they seem to continue with the same strategy. And the killing of Sean Brown is probably an exemplar of that. So Sean Brown was the chairman of a local GAA club in Balahi, I think it was the Balahi Wolftones, in a premeditated act in 1997 by loyalist paramilitaries. He was abducted and killed. So, I mean, that's 1987. We're almost like 25, 26 years beyond that point. And his family always sought justice. And there was meant to have been, and I would say meant to have been, a full investigation. No one was ever charged, and there's been no convictions into this killing. So fast forward all of these years, and there's an inquest held. And as part of that inquest procedure, it is disclosed that there was that the British intelligence agencies and police had linked intelligence, or the intelligence linked 25 people to that crime, that killing, and of which a number of those, or several of those, were state agents.
Mm.
So that tells you that the investigation had never been conducted in any way which was compliant to get to the truth of that. And really interesting, just before the inquest was closed down by the British government, the coroner made it very clear that the only way forward was to have a public inquiry in this case. And again, I can't over 25 people were known to be associated with this killing, and no one was ever arrested, or no one was convicted of it. And they included state agents.
Yeah.
We don't know how many state agents, but it was several state agents. So the coroner found that the British government have refused to have an inquiry. There was a further set of court cases, and the most recent one, the court found that the British government should reflect on their decision not to have it, and they've given them 4 weeks to come back with a process which would be consistent with legal rights of the families. And they have set up a group called, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, it's ICRIR.
Mm-hmm.
And a judge in a different case found that body could not be used to investigate this in any compliant fashion. That investigative body includes former PSNI and RUC officers who would have been involved in the cover-up of this.
State agents, certainly,
so a full public inquiry is what is required, and that is what the family demand. But that is what the British government have resisted, and they have 4 weeks to fulfill that mandate.
Mm-hmm.
The court has come, and this is the interesting piece is this is not about the campaign want a public inquiry, but it's the fact that the British government are ignoring what the court system is saying, what the legal system is saying, and setting that aside. So there's a job of work to be done to hold the British government to account, to bring them back to just respecting the legal findings and implementing legal judgments on these cases. But that is the reason why the Sean Brown case is now in the public domain, and it comes back to this. And again, I always repeat it: 25 people were disclosed at an inquest years later, and including several state agents involved in this. And the British government still haven't offered the family a full public inquiry about why there was no investigation and who actually had ultimately been responsible for this.
Decided, that's right.
Somebody decided somewhere to cover up this killing. And again, it was not a random attack, it was premeditated. Yeah. He was abducted and killed.
So we'll keep an eye on any developments there. It looks as though there might have been some recent meetings to discuss and statements made about this.
Yeah, so we raised it. Mary Lou McDonald and Michelle O'Neill, the Sinn Féin president and vice president, raised the issue directly with Hilary Benn, who's the British Secretary of State, who ultimately will be the one who will make that decision. Yeah. Will he abide by the court judgment, or will he continue to frustrate the cause of justice and peace and reconciliation? And I think that's the important piece about this. The families have the right to know the truth, they have the right to justice, but also the bigger question is about, if you want reconciliation, there has to be acknowledgement. Yeah. And that is not what these families are getting at the minute.
And this is the path forward in that way. Thank you for that update. I wish there was better news there, and we'll keep updated on what's going on there and keep everyone updated on that as well.
Sorry, Greg, just enough. I think that's the thing to reflect is that this family have been campaigning for years, and that campaign will continue. They have brought it this far. I have no doubt they will bring it to the point where the full disclosure will be made. That's right. And that's part of all of our jobs. So yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it's slow, but we continue to move forward with these.
That's the work, right? As we said, that's what we call it, a struggle, and that's the work. So we will move on into maybe a look at the future, in the sense of where we are, broadly speaking, in the move and work towards creating a new and united Ireland. We recently here in the States we're lucky to have a inaugural gala by some dignitaries, hosted by the organization called Ireland's Future, a fantastic civic organization doing work in Ireland to bring as many voices as possible to the work of exploring a united Ireland and the future of Ireland. They hosted an event here in the States that from all accounts was just outstanding, from the experience of people in the room, as well as the speeches. We also have seen some recent op-eds and interviews. The topic of Irish unity is front of mind in a lot of places. As I said, we have some people's assemblies coming up. What's kind of a broad look at where we are in the work towards unity?
Yeah, I think in the work towards unity, I'll start with the commissions that we have been involved in, both
Right.
in Ireland, and there's been a run of them here, and in the US. And I think particularly the work in the US and Canada, because they've got ones coming up.
That's
They,
right.
they hosted one in
Yeah, yeah.
Montreal. For me, being in attendance, though, it's a real privilege and it's a real energizer, because to find the engagement and to find that we are not on our own on
Yes.
this, and it does create a really interesting conversation. I've come away from any of those commissions and would recommend them to people to come along. I've come away not just energized, but more informed.
Hmm.
It's about listening to people's histories, about their stories, but also about their views and how we can progress and secure Irish unity. So I
Yeah.
think those commissions, I couldn't endorse them enough in
Great.
terms of the type of work that comes out of them, the type of conversations. And that's me as an Irish activist based in Ireland
Yeah.
and doing the work here. And it's just, as I say, just so empowering and so
Yes, that's a great word
energizing
for it.
to be
Yeah,
in
yeah.
those rooms. So yeah, that's to keep it. And all of this comes back to the major changes that are happening north
Yeah,
and south. We talked about Sinn Féin being the largest party. These parties of government and establishment doing everything that they can to keep us out of power
that's right.
and to maintain the status quo. And that's what
Yep,
it's about. It's about maintaining the status quo. And that's not what we're about. We're
that's
about
right.
the fundamental change, about uniting our country. And in the north, like even Michelle O'Neill's now the first minister.
Yep,
The unionist majority's gone. So it's all to play for in terms of Irish unity. The Good Friday Agreement provides a pathway through referendums north and south. If the people vote for unity, Ireland will be united.
yep.
So there's a pathway and there's huge potential there. And that's
Growing
been picked up.
enthusiasm.
That's been
Yeah.
picked up by not just in the States, but it's now a subject of academic study. It's now a
That's right.
subject of,
Yeah.
of books, and
Yep.
there's some more in the pipeline coming out. And it's no longer an aspiration, it's now an objective. And I think
Yep.
that was a very telling comments, not just from Sinn Féin people, but also Leo Varadkar, the
That's right.
former Taoiseach, when he spoke in Philadelphia. And this is a guy who's from Fine Gael, which would be traditionally antagonistic towards Sinn Féin,
Hmm.
but their actual full title used to be Fine Gael, the United Ireland Party.
Yeah.
And Leo Varadkar was very interesting. He described Irish unity as the political project of this generation,
Yes.
and I think that is absolutely pitch perfect. That is our objective. This is the project for our generation, that
Yeah.
we could be the ones to unite the country and
That's right.
build a new Ireland. He also quite tellingly, in his words, says that the dynamic for change will come from below,
Mm.
not from above.
Yep.
This is a guy who was Taoiseach. He knows the
What above
status
and below
quo.
is. That's right.
He
Yeah.
knows the status quo
Yeah.
argument, the status quo position, and he realizes that can only be changed by people on the ground. And that's in the US, that's in Ireland, that's internationally, that's in Canada. So I think that was a really insightful piece from him. And
Yeah.
again, this would be somebody who would have been a political opponent of Sinn Féin. And that's I think the really interesting piece. Irish unity is the common bond between most of us
Yeah.
on the island of Ireland who struggle for it, and also with our diaspora.
Yeah.
So we have that. We have now. That's for me is progress. That's potential. That
Good
is
news. Yeah.
about the
Good news.
future and the
Yeah.
hope.
Yep.
I contrast that against the current Taoiseach, Micheál Martin, who
Hmm.
was part of that negotiation that excludes Sinn Féin from government. Uh, Micheál Martin done an interview at the same time, or within days
Yeah.
of
Days. Yeah.
Leo Varadkar, and he rejected any idea of planning and preparing for unity. He
That's
couldn't
right.
even bring himself to use the term unity.
Yeah.
And he was asked, what does Ireland look like in 2075? When I will just be still, I'll still be a young man at that in
That's
that
right.
year.
Little, sprightly, and bouncing around. Exactly
I
right.
will have my hoverboard at some stage. He couldn't bring himself to even say he would like to see Ireland united by 2075. And he refuses to contemplate not only advocating for Irish unity, but even recognising that it's a legitimate demand from the people in the north and the south to plan and prepare.
Yeah.
And that the Good Friday Agreement places the constitutional future in the hands of the people. Micheál Martin cannot have a veto over planning and preparation on this. He might be content to push back past 2075, but he does not speak for the generation, and he needs to facilitate that debate.
Yeah.
And the Irish government needs to come to the table about saying this is a possibility. Let's start planning. Let's see what it looks like.
That's right.
He does not have a veto on the future.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, you're right. I'm excited to hear you describe the work of the Assemblies and the Commission in Ireland and in Canada and in America as a clear channel for engagement, a place to connect with other activists, a place to stay in touch with latest developments, and a place to plan and get work done to continue progress in the arena. It's really, they are exciting events, and this is it's a very live question, and it feels no more live than when you're at one of these events and see people from all over saying, yeah, oh, I didn't know you're doing that work. I want to help out, or this is what I'm doing. How can it work together?
Yeah. And I think the key, I'm not going to say it's a metric, but the key takeaway from every one of the events we've done so far, we have had to call the conversation to stop. They would have talked and debated all night.
Exactly right.
So that shows you the level of commitment, the level of enthusiasm for it.
That's
right. So yeah, I would commend the commission model. I would commend people to come along. I would also, not wanting to create more work for you, but encourage people who want to host these types of discussions in their cities. Absolutely. Is to reach out, and we can facilitate that type of discussion.
Exactly right.
I would normally quote Connolly and Pierce at this time, but I find myself quoting Leo Varadkar, and that is, this is the political project of a generation.
Yeah, well, that's great to hear. The as I said, we were in Cincinnati, Nashville, and Chicago at the end of May. If you are in any of those cities or areas, we would love to see you. If you have friends and family in those areas, please let them know that that's going on. Be a part of the conversation. It is one thing to hear speeches and to read articles and to listen to interviews. These commissions and assemblies give you an opportunity to directly engage. It's not just sitting and listening, it's being a part of the work. And we hope to see you there as part of that. Additionally, we have a whole lot of events coming up to celebrate Easter. As you said, it's a really important and solemn time for Irish Republicans. We'll have representatives and speakers in many places. Do you want to hear to talk about what's on the horizon?
Yeah, I will. And if I miss one,
that's okay. Yeah, we'll have it all in the email. Yeah.
So we'll put the details out in the email. But just so look, at Easter is the time, and I'm not quite sure what the US equivalent would be, but it's whenever we remember our patriot dead.
Yeah.
So when we commemorate their patriot dead, we pick Easter for the significance of the Easter commemoration, but it reflects on decades of centuries of struggle from the United Irishmen right through to today.
Yeah.
And it's not, we remember those who died, but we also remember those who struggled, who gave a life's commitment to actually get us to the position where we now have a democratic and peaceful pathway to Irish unity.
Yeah.
And we also recommit to seeing that united Ireland. So I would encourage people to come to attend commemorations, to wear an Easter lily, which is the symbol of Irish Republic, remembering our Irish Republican patriot dead. So there'll be commemorations in San Francisco. TD Louis O'Hara will be speaking at that. He's traveling from Galway to San Francisco. We will have a commemoration in Chicago, and Cathal Mulligan, the MP for Tyrone, hopefully soon to be a TD, to get Irish unity. He'll be traveling and speaking in Chicago. Kathleen Funchion, MEP, who's a member of the European Parliament, and elected from Kilkenny, will be speaking in New York, in Calgary Cemetery on Easter Sunday, Easter Monday on Long Island. And then for those that can make it, she will also be speaking at the Martin McGuinness dinner.
That's right.
Martin McGuinness Foundation dinner in New York on the Tuesday, I think it is.
The 22nd, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so and all those details will be in the newsletter.
Email,
And then we will have MP Dara Hughes from Newry South Armagh will be speaking in Toronto. And we will also then the following week, because Philly, of course, has to be different from everybody else. They do theirs the week after. We will have Linda Dillon, MLA,
Yeah.
traveling to an Easter commemoration the following Sunday. So yeah, and there's other commemorations that I know of in Springfield and Rhode
right.
Island, and it'd be
Yeah.
great to see photographs and have those images shared. But this is a time to not just reflect back on past sacrifices, not just to wrap the green flag around you and sing a
That's right.
Republican ballad. That's only if any value if it is about shaping and building a new and united Ireland. It's about committing to the work ahead of us.
That's right.
So Easter's a time to reflect, and it's also a time to recommit.
To redouble our commitment to that. Thank you for that. I hope to see you all out there. It can be easy to talk yourself out of going to something. I don't. You may not know somebody there or haven't been in a while. Push yourself through that and get out and connect with folks in your community who are doing this work and working together. I do want to give a special shout out. There's a group of activists who are working together on these questions and activities and work, who have formed in the follow-up of the people's assemblies that we've hosted already in New York, Washington, D.C., Cleveland, and Columbus. And we continue to meet monthly and make progress. If you want to be a part of that group, the first step is to join us at one of these people's assemblies. And we will be in Chicago, in Cincinnati, and in Nashville, Tennessee. And you can find out more information about getting involved in that online activist development that way. Thank you, Ciarán, so much for your time today and for insight into a journey through past, present, and future, and all the work we have to do. Really appreciate it.
Yep, and it's great. And hopefully I'll get to meet as many people on the road as we go through these commissions. And again, I don't think anybody's came away from any of the meets we have done going, that was a waste of time. They've all come back.
They haven't told us. Maybe there's a confirmation bias on that one, but I think you're right.
The fact that a lot of them have continued to be engaged, and just the fact that the conversations have just been so interesting. So I'd encourage people to come along, find out more details about the Unity project, and let us hear what your hopes and dreams are, and let us jointly work out our next steps. So that is what Easter's about. That's what we're about outside for the rest of the year. So hopefully see you somewhere along the road.
Exactly right. See you soon, Ciarán. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully see everybody out there in the coming weeks. Thank you.